a brand new dawning as the passion start to rise. The energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor to wake up and hear me.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago here on the Tobago Updates Television. I am Adanna Combie and we continue conversations this morning in studio with our guest. And this morning we're speaking with Mr. Maxlon Roberts. And Maxlon Roberts is the president of the Tobago branch of the Village Councils Association. Good morning, Mr. Roberts, and welcome.
Good morning. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Tobago Updates. Always a pleasure being on.
Right. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. And this morning we want to talk a little bit about village councils. We want to bring the spotlight on village councils. Yes. We want to give some education and some information as it relates to village councils. Now, we've been hearing this term as a little girl growing up. I've been hearing about village councils all over the island of Tobago, and sometimes we wonder, what is a village council? Now, I know there's been some talk in the atmosphere recently where we want to talk about the legality of village councils, not just in Tobago, but we're speaking in the Tobago space right now. Is it a legal entity? And how is it constitution?
Right. So good morning again, Tobago. And definitely it's interesting to have this conversation surrounding village councils or community councils. You may hear a variation in the term, but it's generally the same. So the village councils are legally binding entity because we are governed by a national constitution, and I want to make that clear. All village councils are governed by the Trinidad and Tobago Associations of Village and Community Councils constitution that predates all of us here. It is actually over 70 years old, so it's been in existence for quite some time. And that is the governing document, the governing principle that guides how village councils conduct their businesses, how they become constituted, whether they become legally or well established, or whether they are in a state of defunctness and stuff like that. So we could get into all of those different conversations because there are different status that you may find a village council. So in terms of it becoming legally recognized, and I'll add some new information as well, because this year, last year into this year, we spent, as the president, I spent most of the time revising the constitution, because as I indicated, it's a very old document and it predates most of us. And we have actually just completed revising the constitution and making some amendments, because we recognize that there were some areas that by now should be amended. So to become an entity that is recognized and acknowledged as one that is duly constituted, generally we have AGMs annually, right? We would have conducted several AGMs last year. The period for conducting AGMs, February by the Constitution's definition. It's from February to March. However, there is a stipulation that allows us to extend that AGM period by 1 month. So that can go as far as to the 30th of April, which is what is happening at this present moment. So all councils who would have had their AGMs last year within the stipulated period are still legitimately duly constituted, because as the national executive, and the constitution, so the new constitution stipulates that additional month period. The old constitution did not have a specific cutoff time. So you would have had AGMs continuing beyond April and going and going and going. And that is something we thought was necessary to revise. So all councils, by recognition of the association, the national association, is duly constituted. We also encourage councils to be registered, because it's part of the new compulsory matter of the new constitution that you register your council as a non-profit organization or so forth. So that has to happen as well.
All right. You mentioned earlier that you made some amendments to the Constitution. What is the process in getting the amendment approved? Is that the
Right.
correct term? And
Yes.
how long does it take for it to be implemented?
Right. It takes, so the process is that you have a national convention, a special convention. The composition of that special convention, you have representation. Let me just indicate there are 11 branch executives that exist, and those 11 branches are come into existence based on the 11 districts. That is in, I'm speaking about Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
So Tobago is recognized as a district. Then you have St. George's West, St. George's East, Caroni, and so forth, accumulating of 11 districts. Each one of those branch that represents each one of those districts has representation that comes together to form the, as well as you have different other categories that allows persons, lifetime members and stuff like that, to allow persons to be a part of the national convention. So to get your constitution amended or revised, you gather the information through your branches. So you have unit councils. So let's say Blackrock would be a unit council, Glamorgan would be a unit council, and all these unit councils, no less than 10 is required to form a branch. When you form that branch, you have representation from the branch being part of the national executive and then forming the national council. And it is at that national council, through a special convention, amendments can be made to the constitution. There is no other way but through the national convention.
So we have the convention, the amendments are brought, it's agreed upon.
Yes, it's deliberated upon for a number of days.
Right.
So the suggestions are, so let me give you an example of how it went this time around, because I was a part of the process. So as the executive representing the branches or the units on the island of Tobago, we reached out to all councils and asked them for submissions. You know, look at the constitution where you see deficiencies, because we recognize that that is needed. Persons would have submitted their suggestions, their contributions. Those contributions were then taken to the national executive, where deliberations were had, because you have suggestions coming from Caroni East, St. George's West, Tobago, and then we sat down and have days of discussions and look at where the similarities arose. Look at where what needs to be added, what needs to be. After having that discussion, you take that final document to the National Convention for ratification. And that is the process. So that was the process followed.
And it was implemented. How soon after it was implemented?
So it was implemented. The new amendments came in effect as of February 1st of this year.
Okay, absolutely awesome. So what are some of the roles of the village council?
Right, so village councils, as we know, are supposed to represent the foundation of a village, because as we conduct our AGMs, I tend to reiterate that a village council is the backbone of any village, because they are the first, I'll say, the first line of defense. These are the ones who are supposed to ensure that the village is in good coherent, is working towards improving your village through representation of your village at all levels. So the voice of the villages, that is what the village council is supposed to represent, and that voice must now be expressed at different mediums, through different mediums, at different events, at different organizational level, so that no village is neglected by your administration, by your cultural groups, by your churches. So it's to be the voice that carries the village forward, that represents the village and in all matters.
So it is very important to have relationship with different community groups or whatever within the community.
Yes, and there is a part in the constitution that allows us to engage with different groups. So any other group in a community can work with the village council. There is a place that allows that partnership, and we encourage that partnership to continue, and encourage that groups come to the councils, share your ideas, because that's the only way we could actually move forward as an entity. So there is that space that allows other groups, whether it be a sporting group, or agri group, any group, to liaise with the village council and move the advances of the community forward.
How visible, though, are our village councils?
Right.
And accessible?
Well, the accessibility is, see, what is happening, we're trying to change the narrative, because what has happened, or what we've recognized, is that once you hear village council, you start thinking, them old people, right? Because it's generally the seniors of the village who carries the traditions of the village that are there. And that narrative, the intention is to change that and encourage the younger persons to become part of the village council, to become a voice in the village council. And that's something we always advocate for. So the visibility is there. There are some that you find some challenges in them being active. And that is where the branch comes into play. Because we are recognized as duly constituted organizations, the branch has the responsibility to come and guide these councils that may be, because we know we have some quite active ones, and then we have some that are very not so active, very dormant. And the branch comes in and ensure that everything is up to par. Your finances are up to par, your audits are up to par, your record keeping system is up to par. So, and do what is necessary to ensure that the councils, the unit councils, stay active, be vibrant, be relevant in the space. So you would have some that is generally much more active, but the role of the branch executive now is to ensure that activeness and that participatory activity in all spaces becomes more visible, becomes more recognized. And that is the role. So we do have some that are much more active than some, and we're moving slowly to get all well involved.
When you talk about an entity that is constitutionalized, it means that there is some sort of election process because you can't just turn up and say, well, today I am the president.
No,
right? So there must be an election process. How often do you have elections for positions, and what are some of the positions within the village council?
So, as I mentioned it earlier, and thanks for reminding me, because that's a new amendment to the Constitution. Prior to February 1st, councils would have been elected into office for 1 year. Now that has changed. Now councils are elected for 2 years. And a council, or we refer to the 2-year period as a term. So you would either hear a term being 2 years, and we've also structured it in such a way because we don't want, there are some village council where you could recognize the president has been the president for like 10 years and, and so forth. And to avoid that, no officer can serve more than 2 terms in the same position. So to alleviate that type of situation, we have made that amendment as well. So if I am the president, say I'm the president at Lowido, I can't be the president for more than 4 years. I could come back on the executive, but at a different position, right? So prior to February 1st, elections were annually. Now going forward, because AGMs are in the air, today is actually the last day to conduct AGMs based on the Constitution. And all those councils that has been elected now in this period will serve for 2 terms. So the process is that you reach out to the branch, indicate your readiness to have your AGM, conduct your AGM. We send out circulars reminding councils that AGM period is the stipulated period from February to March and so forth. And then they write and indicate to us that they are ready to have their elections. We ensure that they have all the necessary reports well documented. You have to have a secretary's report, a treasurer's report, and a trustee's report. And your treasurer's report must be audited by a recognized auditor or someone with the capacity to do so. And once those have been met, you must have the list of your financial members, because you have to have financial members unless you are a council that were in a defunct state and you're starting from new. Then you bring in the whole village or whoever is interested, and we have to conduct the election. But you must have your financial members, a list of your members. So there's a structure in place. So once that is when that happens, we set the date. The executive of the branch comes together and work out the agenda in terms of how to conduct these elections. And then, based on what date is selected, we go and conduct the elections. We may ask that the community development unit assist, but the community development unit cannot conduct AGMs without the permission of the branch executive. Right? Because as I indicated, we are a national entity that is governed by a constitution. Until that changes, something else could happen, another arrangement could happen. But as we speak, the branch is responsible for conducting AGM. So what had happened in coming out of COVID, we found that quite a few of the council, the unit councils, were in a defunct state because, well, they had those 2 years where they didn't have AGMs, and then they would have missed it. So once 3 years passes and you had not had an AGM, you're considered as either defunct or non-active. And once that situations arise, we come in and we try to rectify that. So coming out of COVID, we wrote to the community development unit because what had happened, the branch in Tobago itself was a bit absent for a while, for whatever reason. I only became the president last year. And so National would have wrote to community development saying that they need Tobago to have its representation at the national level. Can you assist in revising or activating the unit councils in Tobago in order to have a branch executive be installed and have representation at the national? And ComDev assisted tremendously in helping us to get all these councils back up and running. So once the branch was formed now, the branch automatically took back its responsibility of conducting AGMs and going forward and managing that process.
So as you brought community development into the conversation, what I want to find out, what is the relationship between community development and your village councils? What is the relationship?
Right. So so community development has their roles, has their functions, and it involves community activity. So that relationship is always a cordial one. You engage with the village council, or the village council goes to community development if there is something that they think is needed. As it pertains to facilities, however, those facilities that have been built by the community development, and you would see the difference in terms of what is considered a multi-purpose facility now. Those are under the ambit of community development. So that relationship that allows a village council to utilize or to share the space, that's a relationship that has to be built. It's not the village council's responsibility to be the chargeants of that. But that is a relationship that is developed over time, and there's a process that deals with that. Outside of just the centers, you have a good relationship with community development in terms of running the different programs that they may offer at a council. So it's always, so if community development has this program that they want to do, they reach out to the councils to ensure that the information is disseminated properly and that persons are the right persons within the catchment area is available or accessible to access the program. So that's a cordial relationship that has been developed over the years, and it's something that we continue on. We really like the ability to have access to the persons at community development to guide and to assist in any activity.
Now, you mentioned that some of the centers are multi-purpose centers, which are probably the newer ones.
Right.
You're saying that are under the ambit of community development. Are there other centers that are not multi-purpose, and who are they under the direct ambit of? I think
there are a few that are not. They are called what was the term before community centers came into multi-purpose? So like Monk St. George. That center, I think, was built by the community years ago and fell under the ambit of the village council. And there are a few more on the islands like that. And so the what you find happening, the village takes pride in the center and they hold on to it, right? What has happened over the years, community development would have come in and do some renovations or assist in that regard. So that dynamics, I can't really speak to what that new dynamic may be. But Mount St. George is a good example of where you had the center being built by the community over the years and stuff like that.
And in closing, how vibrant are our village councils in Tobago right now? How many? I know you said you can't have a branch with less than 10.
Less than 10.
So obviously we have more than 10.
Yes, we have more than 10.
But how vibrant and how alive and active are our village councils?
Well, that's a very good question. So as I speak, AGMs are conducting. Yesterday I was in Palatine doing the AGM. We had about 6 AGMs yesterday. So because and that's one of the challenges we have. The last 2 days is where most village councils try to cram the AGMs. So that shows that there is interest. And Palatine was actually we considered a new one because they were out for some time. So they were at a defunct state. So that's an addition that wasn't counted last year. So they're very active, and the mere fact that we're seeing this eagerness to have the councils up and running tells us that village councils has a place. It continues to have a place. They're becoming very active and very interested in what is happening in the Tobago space. So we continue with the AGMs. We have about 6 more today, and we could not have completed those without the help of ComDev, because the executive is exhausted, and we wrote to community development asking for assistance, and they have come on board and started to assist us in these last 2 days to carry out those AGMs.
All right. Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Maxlon Roberts, and he is the president of the Tobago branch of the Village Councils Association, representing the village councils here in Tobago on a national level, and bringing some information as it relates to the operations of the village councils and the fact that they are a legal entity with a constitution, a binding constitution, which includes elections and, all of these legal positions being held within the constitution, also speaking to the relationship with community development and how they operate. And I just want to take this opportunity to say that as a child growing up, I'll be hearing about village councils, and it's very important to have one of these in your community. And if you know of one, participate in it. It keeps the community alive, and it encourages community spirit and community togetherness. And let us not forget that the older persons in our community have contributed to the development of our community. They have contributed in one way or the other. So let us not exclude them. Let us not think that the village council is for old people, because that is the foundation of our communities. The culture was built on their shoulders, and there's so much that we can draw from them. So if you have a village council in your community, try to be a part of it. Try to find out some information and work together to build beautiful communities across Tobago. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is where we end Good Morning Tobago on the Tobago Updates television. And I want to say thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you for your comments. Thank you so much for your love, Mr. Roberts. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we end our programming, and we say thank you, thank you, thank you. I am Adanna Combie, and this is where we close for this morning.
It's a brand new morning.